Scotty here. We are at East Gosford Podiatry going in to see Tim, who is going to give us a lot of info on Sever's disease and what that means, how we can help treat and hopefully get through that really tough period as a young child to go and do the sports and activities that they love to do. So we're going to go inside and catch up with Tim.
Sever's is an inflammation of the growth plate at the back of the heel that we see commonly in boys and girls. Boys typically 10 to 12, girls 8 to 13, around those sort of ranges, and not specifically just to those ranges, so it can be difficult to diagnose sometimes. Unfortunately, it's the really active kids that we see, so whether they play netball, basketball, rugby codes, AFL, soccer, so we see that a lot in these kids, and it is, I suppose, something that really prevents them from playing at their best or wanting to play for excessive periods of times. The reason why we see problems with this is that we have excessive repetitive forces that are taken upon through the heel here, and typically in the sports, in the hard grounds that we all play on, or all the kids play on, the local sports fields, the local netball courts, going through these, playing the sports in which they do, we tend to find that they end up with this inflammation response to the heel there. Sometimes we can address the mechanics or the biomechanics of the kid's feet and lower limb. Sometimes we incorporate arch supports or orthotics to help with just taking some stress away from the Achilles tendon region. Other things that we can do is shock absorption throughout a lot of the different shoes, not just the problematic boots or shoes that they're wearing for their sports, but their school shoes, their casual shoes on the weekend, and their other sort of shoes in which they might wear in an everyday sense. The other things that we can also help with as well is a stretch program, and we can also see ice is a great help as well. Certainly after the kids have damaged their heels there during their sport. So there's a few things in which we can do, and it's not the same for everyone. Some kids respond really well from the shock absorption stuff. The other kids respond well to an orthotic related intervention because their mechanics aren't as efficient as the next kid. So it's always best to come and see what is available in terms of treatment, but there are a few different things in which we can help incorporate, and we tend to try and address these symptoms to allow the kids to play as much as they can and limiting the pain. The other thing that we often need to do is to look at modification of the training, whether the kids need to wear their joggers to training rather than a soccer or rugby boot, things along those lines. It only affects boys, so we often see that would be one of the, I suppose, the more common type myths, but we've sort of seen it in both boys and girls. Football, it's sort of, I suppose, predominantly it's the shoes in which we wear, or the boots in which we wear, or the kids wear. It would be the main factor, purely because the way in which the shoes are designed, we don't get the shock absorption or the support typically in a rugby boot, in a soccer boot, than what we would get in a jogger that the kids might wear for their athletics and sports at school. So that would probably be the main reason. Kids are all growing, kids are all going through these growth spurts, but typically that's the reason why the football codes tend to be the worst cases. The key factor, and I mentioned before, shock absorption or lack thereof shock absorption is the sort of thing that we find if I introduce shock absorption into kids' soccer boots that maybe don't have it back into their school shoes, they find some relief through that way. So soccer boots now that are going away from that streamlined process where we didn't have a midsole, now are having, we sort of see a lot more of a midsole, which we get some shock absorption, a lot more shock absorption through there. And if we can get a lot of our kids that maybe have signs of that, that's sort of the direction that I send mum and dad to buy, to concentrate on their field sports shoes with a midsole, and ASICs have a range of them. in here, which I find to be pretty good compared to the old traditional where you'd have the cleats or the studs on the outside and you'd have no midsole and straight into the shoe. We tend to find that they are worse, can sort of exacerbate or flare the condition. It's always best to, and the other thing as well is when, just like anything, if we can get onto it sooner, we tend to find that we can manage it better than if it's been prolonged over a 4, 6, 8 week period where the child is sort of really in a lot of pain in an everyday sense, not just at their sports anymore. So that's also important. We found in the past. So. I've got the worst posture in the world, so during it I can feel myself slumping.